From facing off multiple rivals to the development of the infamous phenomenon known as the Madden cover curse, Madden NFL has been the MVP of the gaming world. Let's take a look at its wild history. Back in the day, everyone knew that John Madden was not fond of flying.
Rolling through the Rockies and all across the Midwest, my sled's filling, and it tastes great coast to coast. That's why I take the train, not because I'm scared of anything.
So it was no surprise when he teamed up with Trip Hawkins and Joey Berra of Electronic Arts in 1984 about what would eventually become the legendary John Madden football game. They were on a train from Denver to Oakland. But back to John. Let me tell you, computers was not his thing either. Just imagine, no Google, no PlayStation, and definitely no internet as you know it today. Plus, people weren't carrying smartphones in their pockets, and video games were only popular among the nerdy crowd. As for Madden, he was all about football. He could break down players like a pro.
Football is what I am. I didn't go into it to make a living or because I enjoyed it. There is much more to it than just enjoying it. I am totally consumed by football, totally involved. I'm not into gardening or any other hobbies. I don't fish or hunt. I'm in football.
But when it came to stuff like Pac-Man Fever or understanding what a PC did, this man was absolutely clueless. I'm not even exaggerating. Trip Hawkins, the man who founded EA, had this goal to create a super realistic football game for computers. Finally, with the Apple II and other cool gadgets hitting the scene, it was the right moment to make that dream come true.
I was starting already the last couple of years I was at Apple. I was going to things like the first West Coast Computer Fair. I was going to any kind of gaming, a gathering of gamers, and I was reading the hobby magazines that began to emerge, and just beginning to become aware of, well, okay, who am I going to be able to go talk to about becoming their publisher? And I was specifically targeting a guy named Bill Budge. So Bill Budge actually came in and worked at Apple for 6 months, and he was able to see what we were doing, which wasn't publicly known yet, and then he was able to go off and use some of those ideas in the a game that we ended up publishing together called Pinball Construction Set. And Pinball Construction Set kind of blew people's minds because they didn't even know yet about the whole user experience that Apple was crafting.
And who'd be the best choice to help him achieve it? Obviously, that genius had to be John Madden. Now, Madden had already signed up to endorse a game for EA, but honestly, they were still debating what kind of game it should be. So on that fateful train ride, Madden presented some possible sketches. Hawkins was all ears. Ibarra had his notepad ready. They chimed in about building a real football game with 7 players on each side. Nah, Madden wasn't having any of it. He immediately called a timeout and said, if it's not 11 players on each side, it ain't real football. Now, isn't that the truth? Well, Hawkins tried to explain that fewer players would make the game run faster. Frankly speaking, I understand his point, but Madden was firm on this. It had to be 22 players on the screen or there'd be no game at all. So the game was in development for 4 years due to some legal issues, but everybody knows how the story ended. Honestly, just take a look at the numbers to measure its ultimate impact. It was like a touchdown in the world of video games. Mind you, I'm talking about a whopping 2 million copies sold in just 1 week, a jaw-dropping 85 million copies since it burst onto the scene, and a cool $4 billion in revenue. But Madden didn't just join the video game industry, it literally made a name there. You see, the video game industry is no joke. It earns a massive $20 billion every year. It's like Hollywood and then some. Just to give you an idea, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 pulled in $550 million in its opening week, while The Dark Knight made $204 million. So yeah, Madden is right up there with the big names. Now, it wasn't just about the numbers, it's all about culture. Grown men were lining up outside Walmart at midnight just to get their hands on this game. Rock bands like Good Charlotte were gaining popularity thanks to the Madden soundtrack. And how can I forget the infamous Madden cover curse? It would literally get more attention than Sports Illustrated covers.
Michael Vick, well, he graced the Madden cover back in 2004 and promptly suffered a broken leg, missing the first 11 games of the season.
Coming back to the game's conception, Sega and EA's partnership remained one of the strangest chapters in gaming history. The thing is that Sega wanted a new flagship game for their Genesis console, but they didn't have the power to create it themselves. So they decided to outsource the job to the people who were creating the competing game. In hindsight, you can guess how that turned out. Sega's game, called John Madden Football, because of their deal with the 49ers legend, ended up being a bust compared to Madden. They literally started with Madden as their foundation, and then took out some of the players and compromised on the graphics. No wonder John came out as the undisputed champ, but believe it or not, both games were on the bestseller list that holiday season. Now, this odd rivalry and their sales success kicked off a whole new era in gaming, the 16-bit era, to be exact. Before these football showdowns, Nintendo was the big player, especially with its killer first-party games. But thanks to the success of both Madden and Montana, the Sega Genesis started making a name for itself as the go-to console for sports games. Well, things got even more heated in 1992, when Sega bagged an official NFL license before Madden, complete with real uniforms, stadiums, and logos. Ouch, that must have hurt. Hold on, EA did not take that sitting down. In 1993, they bounced back with Madden NFL 94, featuring fully licensed teams and all-star lineup of previous Super Bowl champs. You can say that it was like the Super Bowl of video games. Moving on now, let's talk about Madden's journey through the 32-bit era. So the first 32-bit Madden was released on the 3DO,
Hi everyone, welcome to John Madden Football.
a console that ultimately went down like the Titanic. Let me tell you, it was another master project of Trip Hawkins, but by then he had left EA. Now let's fast forward to Madden NFL 96, which was a bit of a wild ride for the franchise. It was supposed to be the game's big debut on the Sony PlayStation, but the developer, Visual Concepts, bit off more than they could chew and the game faced multiple delays. Obviously, EA was feeling the heat and they decided to release a 16-bit version just to keep their fans hooked. Obviously, this backfired, but not in the way you might be expecting. Actually, Sony released a 32-bit game of their own called NFL Game Day, and it was like the Joe Montana football rivalry began all over again. Again, EA was not going to back down. They snapped back with Madden NFL 97, showing Visual Concepts the door and teaming with Tiberian Entertainment to start from scratch. Sure, people had reservations about the AI being sloppy, but the game was a hit. Still, Game Day had a place in people's hearts. The following year, Madden improved the AI, only for Game Day to jump into 3D ahead of them. Truth be told, there wasn't any bad blood between them though. But don't count Madden out. They were back on top by 1999 after introducing the franchise mode that's the key feature of the game. In an unexpected turn of events, Sega decided to make a grand comeback in the late 90s, and was it a comeback worth talking about? So in 1998, they released Dreamcast, their new console and the first of a new generation. They initially tried to rope EA into making a game for them, just like back in the 16-bit days, but for some reason, they couldn't make it a deal. Actually, EA had its sights set on Sony's upcoming PlayStation 2 instead. Wait, things got even more interesting when Sega acquired Visual Concepts. Yeah, the very same company that had fumbled the bag with EA's 96 title. They put Visual Concept on the NFL 2K series, and let me tell you, their first game on Dreamcast was an absolute hit. Literally, no one saw it coming. In fact, it even upstaged Madden NFL 2000 for a while. Now hold on, the battle wasn't over yet. EA's support for Sony's PlayStation 2 was a big blow to the Dreamcast. And let's face it, the PS2 was a graphic powerhouse. Madden's developers were like wizards, squeezing every last drop of power from that console. Although Sega was out of the console game, they weren't ready to give up. They tried to capitalize on the NFL 2K series that was a success, going head-to-head with Madden on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. They even had an ESPN license, making the game feel like a real TV broadcast. Of course, gamers loved it. What's more, the company played it smart with the prices, at times offering their yearly release for half the price of Madden. But you know, Madden was not about to let up. They introduced a hit stick in Madden NFL 2005, and that innovation helped them stay on top of the sales charts. I know, Sega's marketing tactics may have shaken EA a bit, but EA always had tricks up their sleeves. Like they struck an exclusive deal with the NFL, making Madden the only game in town that was truly legit. Sure, there were other games that popped up from time to time, but Madden has established itself as the ultimate winner. Well, it's not just about the big games on the field, it's also about the virtual showdowns in Madden's realm. You see, there's this thing called EA Super Bowl Simulation, and it became quite a phenomenon. Fans of the teams that come out on top tend to believe they've been blessed by the Madden gods. But the superstition doesn't end there. There's also this infamous thing about the Madden cover curse. It's like a dark cloud that hangs over the cover athlete almost every year. People believe that something bad is bound to happen to the cover athlete, whether it's an injury or a slump in performance. Yeah, like a real-life jinx. The good thing is that EA renewed its NFL contract back in 2020, which means it's hanging around for a few more years, and if history has taught us anything, is that Madden and EA are going to keep ruling the gridiron for many more seasons to come.